Pay attention to my videos, you know about what happened last time.
Hey guys, so I wanted to do a very quick comparison of the KLR650 versus the DR650. As some of you may know, I used to own a 2007 model, which is technically a first generation KLR, but the new ones are almost identical as they have the same chassis, motor, and suspension. The front forks are slightly different on the newer models, but it's still about the same. The only difference that you'll see on the newer model is the added addition of fuel injection, bigger fairings for better wind protection, and a higher weight figure. Now the reason I want to make this video is because I'm also in the unique position of having owned a DR650 as well. And that DR650 was a 2012 model. The 2021 and 2022 models are going to be exactly the same as what I owned. And there is one big difference between the two bikes that is going to be very important for you when you're choosing one of these two. But first I want to give you a little background on myself. I've been riding dual sports for about 6 to 7 years now. I've been riding motorcycles for longer. The KLR650 was my first actual dual sport, and I owned it for about 3 years up until I got a DRZ400. And then while owning the DRZ400, I also got an Africa Twin. I then sold the DRZ400, got a WR250R, and I've also had a couple dirt bikes since then, but I still own my WR250R to this day. And I should mention that ultimately I started out riding on a 1993 RM125 when I was much younger. So I have a lot of experience with bikes and I have a lot of experience riding in the dirt, but I am by no means a professional. I still consider myself an amateur rider in a lot of cases. But I definitely have the experience to be able to tell the difference between bike after bike, especially at my height. I am 6'7", 290 pounds, so every bike that I ride is really put to the test. And having owned those bikes, I have ridden a lot more. Just off the top of my head, I can tell you I've ridden a CRF450L, a KLR250, a DR350. I've ridden a KTM 300XCW, I've ridden a KTM 525 EXC, I've ridden a Beta 390 RRS, an XR650L, XL600R, CRF250L, KLX250S, and the two dirt bikes I said I used to own were a 2008 YZ250F and a 2017 KTM 250 SXF. So, like I said, I am no stranger to dual sports and dirt bikes. And my preferred riding is single track and double track trails. Off-road riding is my favorite, and I really don't enjoy road riding that much. It's just not much of a thrill to me, but I still do it when I have to connect trails. But having said all that, I'll get on with the actual comparison. So, like the title states, this is going to be an oversimplified comparison, meaning that this is going to be slightly subjective in some regards. If I were just to flat out label which one is the better bike, I would say the DR650 is the better bike. And why do I say that? I say that because the DR650, in my opinion, is both better on and off-road than the KLR650. Its motor is just much smoother, it makes more power, especially when modified, and it is much easier to manage off-road. Plus, it's the more simple machine and its build quality is superior. Now, having said that, if you want a new KLR 650 or you are considering one, there is one very unique scenario where it is going to be a significantly better bike than the DR650, and that's if you're a taller person. The DR650 is an awesome machine and it is great, but the KLR650 is a significantly bigger bike and it is much more comfortable for people my size, especially if you modify it. My DR650 had all of the tall people mods, the drop pegs, the tall seat, the higher bars, and I still felt cramped in it. In my DR650 review, I have a side-by-side comparison photo of the WR250R versus the DR650. Even with all of those modifications, the DR650 is still significantly smaller than the WR250R. The KLR650, on the other hand, is a much larger bike. which makes it much more comfortable for people my size, slightly shorter, and even taller. Another situation where I think the KLR would be a better buy is if you require fuel injection. If you live in a temperate climate where you ride on super cold days, or if you go up really high in elevation to really low elevation, I would only get the KLR650. Carburetors are reliable and they're great, especially if you live in a climate where it's similar temperature year round, and if you live at sea level or close to sea level like me, it's great and it's reliable, but in cold weather, I hate carburetors. Having owned my WR250R for the past 3 or 4 years now, I can't see myself ever going back to a carburetor, especially for my cold weather riding. And I even said in my DR650 review video that I've been spoiled by fuel injection. And fuel injection is just so convenient, it's so easy, and in my opinion, it is just so much more reliable. But like I said, that's my opinion. People are torn on this. This is just my experience. But for a fact, your cold weather riding at the very least will be far improved with fuel injection. Going back to the KLR being better for taller riders though, that's the thing that motivated me to make this video in the first place, because when people compare the KLR650 and the DR650, they never talk about the ergonomics. The DR650 is a pretty small bike, and it's amazing for shorter riders. It has a much easier entry point, and it's much less intimidating for that fact alone. But even being fully modified for my height, the DR650, I was still crouched over standing up on it. Whereas when I had my old KLR650 completely decked out, modified for my height, I could stand up straight, and it was amazing. And I can stand up straight on my WR250R as well, and that's completely modified for my height. It doesn't matter if I'm doing road work or dirt work. If I were shorter, I would much rather be on the DR650 than the KLR650. The DR650 is just a smoother machine, and it's easier to handle both on and off road. Also, you guys are going to have to forgive me about my lack of footage for the KLR650. I owned this bike about 6-7 years ago, so I don't have very much footage for it. This was before I had a GoPro. But that's basically all I wanted to talk about. Whenever people compare the KLR and the DR, they always forget to talk about the ergonomics. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So hopefully this can help taller riders out there, or shorter riders, make a decision on which bike they want to choose. Really appreciate you all for watching. Leave a comment if you have a question. I try to get back to everybody as soon as I can. But thank you.